Toxic Town, Episode 1, A Parent's Perspective. Imagine giving birth to your child only to realize that something is terribly wrong. This is the heartbreaking reality that Toxic Town brings to life. A story based on families who fought for their justice after their children were born into disabilities. Linked to toxic waste exposures. In today's video, we'll break down episode 1, scene by scene, focusing on the emotional weight of that these parents went through. Let's dive in. The episode starts by showing us what seems to be an ordinary pregnancy. Happiness, anticipation, hope. But quickly, the tone shifts. We see a mother in the delivery room, and the moment she holds her baby, there's a lingering silence. The camera focuses on her face. Confusion, then concern. The doctors exchange an uneasy glance. Something isn't right. And in that moment, we feel her fear. Any parent watching this would understand the gut-wrenching feeling. Something is wrong with my baby, but no one is telling me why. And in all honesty, when it comes to things like this, there should definitely be a discrepancy before the film starts, because it can actually trigger some sort of PTSD, especially when you've gone through something like this. Because I know for myself, my heart and my tummy done backflips, and I was just literally shocked by what was happening in this film. That's why I've decided to do a review, because after watching the first episode, I was completely flabbergasted, because in the description of the information about what we was going to watch had nothing to do with babies and deformities. So I was definitely shocked when watching this, and I feel like a disclaimer should actually be mentioned when it comes to things like this. But what do you guys think if you suffered from any PTSD related to hospital incidents? Please let me know your thoughts below. As time passes, we see different families experiencing the same nightmare. Babies are born with missing limbs, underdeveloped hands, and other deformities. The mother reacts with devastation, some in tears and others in silence, shock. And here's where Toxic Town really hits hard. The rawness of these emotions. These are not just characters. They represent real mothers who had to ask, how did this happen? Was it something I did? Was it me? And it's hard not to blame yourself, because you was the one that was carrying the baby for 9 months. And it's hard to not blame yourself. But I would love to encourage mothers out there, do not. It's never your fault. I can guarantee you. Moving on to scene 3, the denial and gaslighting. One of the most painful parts of this episode is when the parents start asking questions, only to be dismissed. Doctors tell them these things happen, and the local officials insist there's no evidence of a pattern, but we know as the audience. But we, the audience, know better. These parents aren't just grieving, they're fighting against the system that refuses to acknowledge their pain and suffering. This moment is especially powerful for anyone in the disability community who has ever felt ignored, unheard, or brushed aside. There are many cases that show that there's so many medical neglect going on, especially within London. And I'm hoping that this story brings light and pushes the boundaries for doctors to be accountable, to be held accountable for any dismissals that they have against parents that raise concern against their kids. I mean, there was so many things going on. so much emotional things to just witness going on with the mothers. You know, for example, one of the mothers, she was worried about not being able to breastfeed for at least 2 hours. And this was before baby passed. Like, she kept raising up concerns, saying that, you know, baby's not well, how come she's not crying, why is she not feeding? And they just kept dismissing her. And in the end, she did end up passing. And I do believe it's due to that. Also, one of the guys one of the new workers that's on the inspection site really wants to make sure that the company that's actually spreading these toxins go through the right procedures. And it was also nice to see the different perspectives on how different parents would take on the news of raising a disabled child or a child that has deformities. Like, at the end, we saw that, you know, one of the dads tried to end up leaving. One of the moms, after, you know, he saw his son with his hand, and he didn't just try to leave, he tried to actually sneak out and leave. And he even, like, you know, tried to move to a barmaid that was at a bar, trying to, you know, say that, oh, you know, she looks sweet, having her jugs out and stuff. And the barmaid just said, you know what, I've just had a baby. Like, she's just not interested. And he just had a baby that day as well. And the irony of it is that they both ended up having a hand deformity when the mums actually linked up later on, when they were just crossing paths, I believe. And she was saying something like, oh, don't look, my son has a bad hand. And the mum turned around and said, what? Like, mine too. But the mum that was saying mine too, I just feel like she needs encouragement. Honestly, it's definitely helpful to have a great partner beside you, especially when you're going through something like this, as it will push you and give you more confidence in raising a child with special needs and just being desensitized from judgment. Despite the heartbreak, we see the beginning of resilience. A group of mothers coming together, refusing to accept the coincidence as an answer. This is the turning point, not just in the episode, but in real life, as this movie was actually based on a true life events. These women would go on to fight one of the biggest legal battles against environmental negligence. Watching this scene, it's impossible not to think of all the real life parents who had to become activists just to get justice for their children. Episode 1 of Toxic Town isn't just a drama, it's heartbreaking reflection of what real families went through. As parents, we want to protect our children from harm, but what happens when the harm is invisible? Buried in the air we breathe, the water we drink. This episode reminds us of the strength it takes to keep asking questions, even when no one wants to answer them. But what do you think? Did this episode hit as hard for you as it did for me? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you. And didn't see more reaction videos about the same community, please like, share, and definitely subscribe. Thank you.